The gun registry coming in through the back door. I'm Brian Lilley with TheRebel.Media. Justin Trudeau, he's let the veil slip, and now we know that despite all his protestations, a Liberal government will essentially bring back a gun registry in Canada. Now, I know that Justin Trudeau says he's not going to do it. He's sworn it off. He's said it many times, but you need to be able to read carefully and read between the lines to know what will happen under a Liberal government. Their platform, released, does say this: we will not create a new national long gun registry to replace the one that has been dismantled. Fair enough. That sounds definitive, doesn't it? Well, maybe, maybe not. Because again, as I said, you need to be able to read clearly. You need to be able to read between the lines. And the next line in the platform says, we will ensure that Canada becomes a party to the International Arms Trade Treaty. The United Nations Arms Trade Treaty is a massive global attempt at gun control. Article 12 of the Arms Trade Treaty calls for national governments to maintain national records, in not just of sales out of the country, but it also says of end users. That, my friends, would be you, the gun-buying public, the lawful, law-abiding, gun-owning public. In some gun groups and some gun-controlled groups, they read that the same way. They believe it means a national database of every gun owner and what they own in the country. Just because you're not calling it a gun registry doesn't mean it isn't the same thing. So a database of every gun and gun owner is in effect a gun registry. It's just not the wasteful, inefficient long gun registry. What else are the Liberals promising to do? They're promising to have an in-store gun registry. From page 54 of their platform, require firearms vendors to keep records of all firearms inventory and sales to assist police in investigating firearms trafficking and other gun crimes. The UN says there needs to be a national record. The Liberals promised to sign on to that, and they promised that they'll make gun stores keep such records. Again, just because you're not calling it a gun registry doesn't mean it isn't one. This, in fact, is exactly the type of backdoor gun registry some of the chief firearms officers tried to impose before they were shut down a couple of years ago by the Harper Conservatives. What else are the Liberals proposing? Well, they essentially just want to make your life more difficult if you own guns. They're promising to do away with Bill C-42, at least the parts that make life easier for law-abiding gun owners. They want to increase paperwork. They want to require extra permits to transport the guns that you're licensed and already legally own. They want to bring in new regulations for markings that will drive up costs, some say by hundreds of dollars per firearm. Oh, and they want to put gun control groups on the National Firearms Advisory Committee. During last week's French leaders' debate, Trudeau said clearly he favors more gun control.
For 25 years, the survivors of Polytechnique, the families of the survivors, have been asking for better arms control. And at that level, Mr. Harper, you're still on the side of the U.S. and Canadian lobby groups. You've refused to sign the Arms Control Treaty. You're the only NATO country to not have signed that treaty. You don't want to control weapons, guns. You continue to use a policy of division, and we see more violence in our streets.
One thing is clear: if Justin Trudeau and the Liberals win this election, and polls are moving that way, there's going to be much stricter gun control laws in Canada, and there will in effect be a gun registry. Doesn't matter what they want to call it, database, national records, end user statistics, it will in effect be a gun registry. Now, what about Tom Mulcair and the NDP? Well, I've been saying for ages that Mulcair wants a registry back as well. He says he'll do it differently, but that he wants, or what he wants, is in effect a gun registry. He said last December that he won't make the mistakes the Liberals made, but he wants police to be able to trace every gun in the country.
We would look for a way of doing this without falling into the problems that existed with the Liberals' version of this, but we are starting with a definition of what I'm calling an obligation of result. For the NDP, the obligation of result is that the police are able to track every gun.
How are police able to trace every gun in the country without a gun registry? And by the way, since we all know that criminals don't register their guns, the overwhelming majority of gun violence and gun crime in this country will not be changed by this policy. Mulcair, by the way, also favors the UN Arms Trade Treaty, which calls for the National Record System of End Users, a gun registry by any other name. It's funny, Mulcair and Trudeau keep saying that Canada is the only NATO member not to sign the Arms Trade Treaty, and that might be technically true, but what they won't tell you is that the US signed but will not implement the ATT. And that's because while Obama supports it, he can't get it through Congress. Not even the Democrats will back him on it. And that treaty, by the way, also would prevent Canada and other democratic countries from arming groups, democratic groups fighting for democracy that are trying to overthrow brutal dictators. That would be illegal under international law with this treaty. We've had a long, hard fight to get some sanity restored to our gun control laws in this country. I'd say there's still plenty to do, but if this election goes the wrong way, all that progress of the last few years and any hope for future progress will be lost. So I'm asking you to tell your friends about this. Post this video to Facebook, to Twitter, email it to your gun club buddies, and let them know the truth before it's too late.